So where we left off in our last video, when we start our game, our little icons here do race across the screen, and then when they get to the finish line, they stop. The first thing I want to be able to do is have them actually cross the finish line. I still want to keep track of who got there first, but I don't want them to stop here. I want them to stop over here. So let's do that first. So I'm going to stop it. We'll come into the scripts. And actually, it's not in here. We need it in field. Where we have the on finish line entered, if we select the finish line, come over to its nodes, what we want to do is take the exited. So the way this works is when we first touch it, so the edge of this blue touches the edge of this blue, that's when they first start overlapping. So they've entered each other's space. What I want to do is get the edge of this blue matched up with the edge of this blue so that when they come apart, that's when they exit each other's area. I want to get the first frame that happens. So with the finish line selected, I'm going to come over and double click the area exited. It's going to create a function for me. It's going to be put onto my field script. That's where I want it. I'll just hit connect. And in here, I'm going to grab this area stopped and I'll paste it in here. And then let's just start our game. They should now cross the finish line when they're done. And we need some way to distinguish them apart as well. Maybe we'll give them a name later. Now they went underneath the red line. I want that red line to be on the bottom so that they go over top of it. So keep that in mind that anything inside of your hierarchy here at the bottom is rendered on top of anything that's above it. So in this case, the finish line is above all the chickens, above the starter line and also above the field. If I were to come into the 2D view of the field, and if I were to put this right after the starting line, I'm just going to grab one chicken. We'll move him over. Notice now he is on top. If I were to drag this under, it's on top of him. So let's just keep that in mind. We want it underneath. I guess maybe depending on the sprite you have, maybe it's one of those little flag ones that flies in the air and you want them to go under it. I want them to go over it. So we'll save that off. We got that part working right. The next thing I want is to give them some sort of rank. So when they cross the finish line, I know who's first, who's second. I get it down here, but I want it actually up here in the visual. When you actually compile the game and start distributing it, they don't have access to what's down here. So I need a way to put a number on each of these for what they finished in. For that, we're going to come into the chicken scene. I'm going to select the chicken. I'm going to hit the plus button, and I'm going to look for a label. And a label is just a piece of text. If we take a look, it's down here. To make this easier to see, with the label selected, I'm going to come into the text property. I'm just going to put an 8. So it's kind of small. I want to make this bigger. And I also want it centered. So let's do the centering first. So this is the area that it's going to print in. Let's fix that area first. And we do that by coming up here, hit the little drop down, and this shows us how we want it centered according to its parent. So if I click there, it'll be in the center of the parent. Now I want the text to be in the center as well. So with the label selected again, we can come over to our horizontal alignment, center it, and it's not really going to do anything for this particular game, but I tend to center vertically as well. If we had more than one line of text going through here, then that it might come into play. But it doesn't here, but OCD is kicking in. I got to do it. The font's too small as well. I want it to take up most of this area. So I'm going to scroll down. We want to come into theme overrides, font size, check that box. And because this is the second time I've done this video, I know I want a font size of 96. Now, depending on the sprite, since we're going to change this out later to something a little more visually pleasing, if you pick something that has a lot of white, you might want to have some sort of outline or shadow on this. I'm going to go with the outline. So for that, I can come into colors. I'm going to turn on my font outline. We can bring this out a little bit more so you can see it. And then we'll come into constants and outline size. I know for mine, I want a 16. I'm going to save this. I want to come into the field scene and I just want to take a look here. Yep, that's pretty easy to see. So I'll come back into a chicken scene, come all the way back up, and I'm just going to erase that number. And I'm going to rename label. You just double click it to rank. This shows what rank he came in, not rank 2. I've already got a rank. and a nameplate. Well, like I said, this was the second time I've done it. Unfortunately, the audio didn't pan out last time. So I'm going to call this rank. I'll save it. We'll head into the chicken script, and I want to make a function that we can call, which I've already got here. Did I mention this was the second time I've done it? So I'll redo this function from scratch just so you can see how it was done. So func set rank. I'm going to be passed in an integer, which I'm just going to refer to as rank. We're not going to return anything, so it's void. And then all I want to do is on this label, I want to get its text property. If you hover over it, it tells you the name of the property. So property text. I want to grab that. Let me make this a bit bigger for you. And I want to take whatever they sent in, which is an int, convert it to a string, and then post it. So I can say $, and when I hit the $, it shows me all of the children that I have access to. So there's no point in typing it because, well, that's how you get typos. We'll just select rank, hit .te, and I want the text property, so I can just hit enter. We'll hit equals. Now we have to convert this int to a string, and I want another space there. I'm just going to hit save, and then we have to come into our field. And right up here where they first cross that finish line, when they first enter it, underneath name, I'm going to call that function. And again, this was area 2D to start with. So we can call area. That's the name of the variable that crossed us. I'm going to set dot. And then if we try to set the rank, notice it does not autocomplete for us. That's because, zoink, let's get rid of that. That's because on area 2D, it does not actually have a function called set rank. So what we can do is we can create our own class name, which we've seen here was called class_name. We can give it whatever we want to call it. Now, the naming convention says to use Pascal casing. With Pascal casing, the first letter of every word is capitalized. There's no underscores, and there's no spaces. So if I wanted to call this chicken racer, this would be how I'd do it. First letter of every word is capitalized. But I just want to call this chicken. So I'll save it. I'm going to come back into our field. And look now when I try to do it. First, we have to change the type. It's no longer an area 2D. It's of type chicken. And now when I say area dot post rank, is that not what I called it? Set rank. So it helps if you pick the right name. So dot set, there we go. And now we can pass in a rank. It's expecting an int, so we need something to pass in. I think the easiest way to do this would be to create a variable. I'm going to call it, let's call it rank, because that's what it stands for. It's a type of int, and I'm going to start it off at 1. So every time someone crosses the finish line, I'm going to pass in this rank. So the first person that passes it gets a rank 1. And then I want to take rank, and I'm going to add 1 to it. So the next person to pass it is going to get rank 2. Then the next person, rank 3 and 4, and then so on, depending on how many people you have. So if I've got this right, it should just work. I just want to take a look at the finish line here. I did set that up. Yep. So let's go ahead. We'll run it. And we'll see if the rankings are working. If so, we'll give them all a name next. There we go. We are now getting some ranks. And take note that some of them did not cross the finish line. And this is because we have our range going from negative 150 to 500. So what happened with these two is they entered the finish line. Then they got a negative number, moved back, and then stopped. Because by moving back, they exited that finish line. And this is where it stopped it. So we can fix this simply by coming into our chicken script and making sure we do not have, a negative number here. I kind of like that jerkiness. Later on, you can experiment with tweens to get the same effect without having to worry about it bouncing backwards at the finish line. But right now, not in this game. Now, I don't like magic numbers where we just plug numbers in as we go. I like to make everything a variable. So I'm going to come up here above the var, and we may want to have different speeds for different chickens. And to do that, we have this variable or this keyword export. So we'll throw this little tag on here, var, I'm going to call it min rank or min speed. And I'm going to set this to 0. So there could be some frames where it doesn't move. And of course, it's of type int. I'm just going to put a space in here. And if I save it and I come over to one of my chicken scenes, because I made it an export, when I click on the chicken, this is where the script is attached. Come into Inspector. We can see it right here now. Now, the main benefit of this is every chicken in our game now can have a different min speed. So let's say I take this one, move it to 10. I can go to the next chicken. It's at 0. Let's do 100. I can go to the next chicken and so on and give them actual different values. And notice they save. Now to keep things fair, I'm just going to put them all at 0 for now. And while I'm here inside a chicken, I might as well change that magic number for the max speed. Let's make this a variable too. So every chicken can now have a different max speed. And I'm going to lower it a bit, maybe not 250, let's do 350. So down here, all I have to say now is min speed and pass in max speed. Now, not only are chickens not going to stop before the starting line, they can all have different speeds if you choose so. Okay, let's add a name to it now. So again, we'll come in, we'll look at the chicken. I have a rank, which is right here, that's a number, and I want their name to be out at the end here. So I'm going to take rank, select it, and then Command D or Control D, depending if you're on Mac or Windows. That'll copy it, and then I'm going to rename this to nameplate. And I'll just throw some text up here just so I can see it. Now I want this to be after the character. So I'm going to come up here and select this one here. So middle right, that'll move it here. See how it lines up? I want it a bit more. So with it selected, I'm going to move my mouse over here and just hit shift and then the left arrow to about there. And the font's too big. I want it to be about maybe half that size. So I'll come down, theme overrides, font size, and then change it from 96 to 48. I'll save it. Now take note that my text is in the center of this text box. I want it right up here. I want it to be right aligned. So we'll scroll up. Right here, our horizontal alignment, I'll do right. We'll save this off, come look at our field, and sure enough, we have a bunch of Bobs. Now we don't want them all to be named Bob. It'd be nice to be able to change their name up here. And we've already seen how we can expose that, right? So I'll come into scripts, come all the way up to the top for chicken. I'm going to put another export up here. This will be chicken name because you can't use the word name. It is used by something else. This is of type string. And I like to start all my names off with anon for anonymous. I'll save that. And too much Python. I missed the var. I'm just going to put a space in there. And if we come back into the field, as we click on them, we have different names. So the first one, maybe we'll keep that one as Bob. Our next one can be Steve. You get the idea. Go through, name all of yours. All right. Then once we have them named, we need to be able to go into the scene and reference this nameplate and switch that name up. I'm going to do that in the ready function. So I'll come into here. Again, we use the $sign. This shows me all the children nodes I have over here. I want the nameplate. So I'll just hit the down arrow, get to the nameplate. I want to access this text property. So we hit that, type in text equals, and then I just want to add the chicken name, which is actually the first one selected. So we'll just go ahead, hit that. If we run our game, all the names should show up now. So there we go. We got Bob, Steve, Greg, George, KFC, Canes, and Popeyes. Let's see who's going to win this one. It looks like Canes or George, and Canes came in. KFC is last. It's always last. All right, so we've got our names. We've got a ranking. Let's put a start button. So our game, when it starts up, does not do anything. All of our racers are going to be over here. And when we hit the start button, then they'll start racing. And then after that, we'll swap out our icon with something from the internet. So we'll close this. And I'm going to jump into the field. There we go. We're going to add a button. Same thing though. It starts off super small depending what tool you have up here. If we have the select tool selected, we can see the little dots for it. So just like before, we come down here. Well, since we already have it selected, I'll do start at the top here inside of the text field. Come down to theme overrides, font size, tick it on, do 96. There we go. And I want to add a bit of width. So that was still under layout, transform, and then size on the X, 270. And it's already centered, so I'm good there. All I gotta do is put it in the center of the screen, which we do here. All right, so it looks better. Now we gotta hook up the pressed signal to actually start the race. There's a couple ways we can do this, but I want to introduce you to what's called a global signal. So something that when we activate something or a signal sent out, everyone can be listening for it, and they'll do something when they hear it. So to do this, we're going to have to create a new script. So I'm going to come down into our file system, right click, new script. I'm going to call this global_signal. Let's open it up. I'm going to get rid of everything except the extends node. And all I'm going to type is signal. And I'm just going to call it start_race. This is going to be the name of that signal that I send out when I hit that start button. So to make this global, we have to come into our project settings, come over to the globals tab, and then we got to load that script up. So we'll hit this little folder, and then my global signal script is right here. I can just double click it. It loads it up, and it also takes whatever the name of the script was, and it adds it as the node name. So I'm going to hit add, and this adds it for us. So inside of any other script, we can call global signal and dot whatever we want from it. In this case, all we have is a signal. So when our game starts up now, if we go to the remote view, we can see that underneath the root, we have this global signal. This is what globals do, and everything inside of this scene can access it. So let's stop that. Let's come into the button itself. I'm going to come over to the nodes, and we want to grab the pressed event. So if we double click it, I'll connect to the field. I'm just going to take the default here. We'll hit connect, and I want to call that global signal. So I can come in and say the name of the script, which is global signal dot, then the name of the signal that we want to send out. It's only got one, and we can tell it's a signal because of the icon. And then we want to use emit. And take note, you need the parentheses at the end. So when I click that button now, it's going to send out this signal. I also want to hide that button when I click it. So I can say $, start typing out the name of it right here. Then we'll just use dot, hide, not hidden, hide. And again, parentheses at the end. That'll just make the button disappear so we can't see it anymore. All right, so we're setting out this global signal. What we have to do now is get our chicken to stand at the starting line. I'll come in and take a look here. I want them to just stand at the starting line until I press this. If I were to run it right now, the button's still there, and they just start running. And when I hit this, it sends out the signal, it hides itself, but they've already started running. So let's make them wait first. So we'll have to come into the scripts, chicken, and right here, when our game first starts, every chicken is set to isActive, and keep in mind, isActive is checked every frame. If it is true, they start running. We don't want that. So if we set it to false, save it, and run our game now, they're still standing there. They're waiting for us. We hit start. It's sending out their signal, but our chickens aren't waiting for it. Let's set that up next. So to do that, I'm going to come create a function here called, let's just call it start to match with stop. It doesn't take any parameters. It doesn't return anything. And all we want to do is say isActive is equal to true. So we turn them on essentially. Now all we have to do is hook this function up so that when we hear that start race signal, we call it. And we do that from ready. So to start with it, we need the name of the script, which is global signal dot, the name of the signal we want, connect. We got to connect to it first, and then we get it as a string. And that was start race. And then outside of that string, we want to tell it what signal we want to call when it hears this. In this case, we just call it start. And when you autocomplete, it might put these parentheses here for you. You have to get rid of those ones. It has to be just the name of the function without the parentheses. I'm going to put a space in here just to make it a little more readable. So again, we're going to listen for the global signal. We're going to connect to the signal of start race. When we hear start race, we call start. And when we call start, all we're doing is turning the chickens on. So we'll start our race. Hit start. And they're off. All right, who won last time? I can't remember. KFC was last. Greg? Did Greg win last time? Popeyes or Cane's? Oh, it was close. KFC is last again. All right, so let's change that sprite. Now, you can go onto the internet, grab pretty much any image you want. I would go something with a transparent background, so maybe a nice PNG. GIFs natively won't work. JPEGs aren't transparent. PNG is probably your best bet. I'm going to use one of my wife's stickers. So I'll shrink this down. I've got one right here. Actually, let's just not shrink it down. Let's just minimize it a bit. What I want to do, the easiest way to put this in is to drag this down so you have a little bit of empty space here. Just drag it in. It'll import it, do whatever it needs to do to it. I'll full screen again. I can double click it, and usually it shows it. Okay, well, we'll hook it up first. So let's go into our chicken scene. And then when we have our sprite here, we have this attached to it, the Godot logo. So we could come down, we could double click, do a quick load. We only have 2 images in our whole file system here that we could use. We could double click it. We could take it, also just drag and drop it up here. Either one would work, but if I come into the scene, it's huge. If we take a look at this image, it's absolutely massive. The original one was the size of this box, and that's what we want to do is scale it down. So with the sprite selected, I'm going to come over to the transform, scale, and let's start off with 0.05. Close, not enough. Let's try 0.025. And because I have this chain link on, anytime I adjust the X, the Y is done. Likewise, if I adjust the Y, the X is done. Since I want to keep it square, I'm going to keep it like that. But once I get really close, I just hold Shift down, and I'll grab the corners and kind of just pull them out a bit. That's pretty close. It doesn't have to be precise. So I'm going to save this off. We can come back into our game. Let's run. We'll hit start, and there we go. Now, some of the sprites you download might be a little blurry or pixelated. There are ways to clear that up. Mine looks fine. But if for some reason it is pixelated, you can grab the sprite, go into texture, and mine's set to nearest because I think I did that from the last time I tried this, and I just forgot to roll back. But yours might be set to something different. I'm not having a problem with mine. But if you do, set it to nearest. It usually makes it a little bit crisper. Anyway, that's it. You have a fully racing chicken game. If you want to do a little bit of extra, after the race is done, we can have another button that pops up that says reset. And when you click it, it just reloads this level for you, which would mean that all of your chickens would start off over here and the start button would start off showing again. See if you can do that one yourself. If you like these little videos, let me know down below if you want to see more. And until next time, well, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.